there's a lot of skills that you need in being a product owner that are required as a software engineer, especially when you are working in a team that's kind of chaotic.
What drew you to tech and a career in software engineering?
So when I was in school, I never really thought like of tech being a career path for me. I did IT in school, but I didn't do it with a interest of I'm going to go into IT. So I actually did an IT diploma, and that's quite a big thing. But like the area that I actually wanted to go into was maths. So I was really naturally attuned to doing maths at school, and I knew that I was good at it, and I knew that I could like logically figure things out. And so I thought, okay, well maybe I can go into like maths and do maths as a career. I didn't really have like the parents to like work with and figure out what it is that I wanted to do. My parents are pretty much like my dad's been ill since I was like a child, so he's not been able to work, and then my mum is works at a cafe, so they couldn't really help me with a lot of that stuff. They couldn't really help with any of my homework, or they couldn't really help me figure out what it is that I wanted to do. So a lot of it was just me trying to figure out, okay, well, what do people who work in maths do? And so one of the areas I was thinking was maybe I can, be an accountant or something, and or an actuary. There were the two kind of careers that like I saw that people who did maths did. So I was like, okay, well, I can probably do those things. And then I really loved maths in school. I really loved it. It was really, really fun. It was all about problem solving. Same with same with like college. And then I got to university, and I did maths at university, and I absolutely hated it. It was like it had gone from like solving problems and figuring things out to what I call like more like the theory of maths of like, okay, well, how does that prove it? How does that prove that? And I just really didn't enjoy it. And then at the time, I was really close to like dropping out of school. I was really close to dropping out of university and coming home and then doing something at home. But then I met my partner at the time, and he was doing a computer science degree. And so I stayed at university because now I was dating this person, and I was like, okay, well, what can I do next? And it was a toss up between, for me, it was a toss up between psychology and IT. I was thinking, okay, well, I've done IT before, and I've generally been good at it. And then I quite like working with people, and I find people very interesting. So maybe psychology is a good fit for me. And he helped me kind of figure out, like, actually, why not just do the computer science bit? And I was really apprehensive at first because I was like, well, I've never done coding before, and I thought only people who have learned how to code before could do a computer science degree. And he was like, no, you should be fine. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. I tried a bit of it, and I thought it was really fun, and it just grew from there. And that's the way that I naturally went into it. And I look back now, and I think actually there were so many points in my teenage years where I did things that most people didn't do that showed that I really found stuff like that interesting. So I remember there was a website called Pixar, for example, and you could have these like templates that you would put into Pixar that would make your page look really cool. And I always like to make my page look really cool, but then like a lot of the pages that look really cool had ads in them. So I would go into the HTML and I would remove the ads, and I would update the HTML how I wanted it. And those are like just examples of actually like I was doing coding before I knew I was doing coding. So that's how I got into it, really, and I've loved it ever since.
I'm sorry to hear about your dad.
No, it's okay, thank you. He's fine, but he has like lung condition, like emphysema, so like he can't do a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of like long walking. So his previous jobs were like trade and building and stuff like that, so he can't do that anymore.
Sorry to hear that. I think, no offense to any accountants that somehow watch this, but I think you dodged a bullet in accountancy and being an actuary. I think tech is far more interesting. Aside from the Pixar website, were there any other things that stood out as signs that tech was going to be of interest?
Doing IT at the time was definitely an indicator. So in school there was a massive like diploma that you could do. It's like worth 7 GCSEs, and it covered things like networking, it covered project management, it covered like basic website design. It wasn't really you didn't really do any code, but you created a website. You used something like Dreamweaver or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. So there was a big course just focusing on teaching IT. So I think that was a bit of an indicator. I remember like I would spend hours and hours fixated on getting my like coursework in for my IT in both school and in college, because I did IT in college as well. And so I think just doing it as a subject was a really big indicator for me. And then also I know people kind of have a differing opinions on this, but I actually think a lot of math is closely related to programming. Not in the way that people think though, so not in the way of like data structure and algorithms, but the fact that you have to apply like a problem to a new like context and use things that you've learned to solve that context is pretty much math. So that's the way that I think it's very, very related. And so I think just having that natural love of solving problems and love of maths really, really meant like going into computer science and going into software engineering was the right thing for me.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of overlap, isn't there? Particularly kind of the things you do in A levels when you deal with probably some more of the pure and mechanics, decision maths rather than the stats. But yeah,
Yeah, decision maths definitely as well. Like there's so many things in decision maths where you see so many algorithms using what you learn at decision maths, even though in decision maths you were just doing a lot of it was just the manual like workings out, but it's the same concepts. It's just doing the manual side, doing it manually.
Yeah, absolutely. For as long as I can remember, we've had a discussion in all of the STEM subjects about how do we attract more diversity, because, I mean, take my university, for example. There were 101 students in my computer science course. There was one lady, and the rest was white men. How do we attract more diversity? So you went to university about 12 years later than me, I think. Had you seen it change then? Were those numbers still the same?
So in my year, there was another two women, and in doing the computer science one, and then there was a few more women doing the IT course, but it was still predominantly, I'd say, 9% men. I guess one thing that I always try to understand is what problem are they trying to solve with it, because I think the problem that they're trying to solve is that a lot of applications and are built by men, and then because of that, they end up being built for men. And but the way that people get into tech is, and from at least from what I've seen, is people make out like tech is only cool for a certain type of person, and so for a lot of women, it's not seen as cool to learn tech. It's not seen as cool. Like it's seen as nerdy. It's seen as geeky. It's seen as, you're not like you don't need to worry about that. And that's the impression that I felt like when I was in school. I was like, coding isn't for me. Only boys do that. Only boys who have been coding since they were 10 do that. And that might have changed. That might change now. But like when I've been to colleges, I've seen like a lot of like of the women there, like or the don't know what would you call people who are like that kind of age. That they don't see tech as cool, and so they don't want to learn it. And so you end up with a lot of people who go into tech being people who think, okay, you can either, because they enjoy it or because they want to make money. And that's the kind of what I see in tech. There's a lot of people who go into it because they think they can make a lot of money from it. But then that seems it's created this like tech bro culture. I don't know if you've noticed it, but there's a really big tech bro culture, and it is especially rife on LinkedIn. where you have these tech bros just like constantly just like banding together and like, you know, working with each other, and then you just got like all the women kind of punched out of that. It feels, and that's a perfect example of the environment of what it's like in a lot of companies as well.
Can't say I've seen so much of that in companies, because until the last 5 years, I think the majority of teams I've worked on have had no women in them. A couple of places where there have been women in QA teams that we've worked close to sometimes. Not close enough, because I think we should always be working close with QA, but that's a separate discussion. But it's definitely been a very male-dominated environment in most of the places I work. I think I've seen less of the tech culture. A lot of the places I've worked over the years have been, we say, more traditional engineering, away from some of the big tech companies, and have had maybe a wider diversity in age range than I see in a lot of those. I mean, for example, we were selling to Facebook, and I went over to their offices in Silicon Valley in 2013 to 2016. And I was, mid-30s then? Quite often I was the oldest person in the room by several years. Which is quite an experience, taking our 70-year-old CEO over there at the time. He just really stood out with his tweed jacket and elbow patches. And whereas a lot of the companies I've seen in the UK have had people from graduates all the way up to people in their 60s, all working in the same teams. And there's been more of a diversity of age, if not in genders and backgrounds. I haven't seen that tech bro culture so much. And again, I'm a white man, so maybe I'm more oblivious to a lot of it as well.
Yeah, it's definitely there, and that I don't know if you've seen any of the stats, but a lot of women tend to leave, at least being a software engineer, for either other roles in tech, or for like they leave the industry altogether. And I think that sort of culture is probably one of the reasons for it. I think there's been a few like statistics saying that is one of the reasons, but then there's a few other reasons as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. So we have a problem attracting people, and we have a problem keeping them.
And I think that's one of the biggest concerns, because it's great that you have all of these things that are bringing women in, that you've got all of these initiatives that bring women in from various backgrounds, but if you can't keep them there, then all these initiatives are not like helping. So we have a lot of work to do to make women want to stay, to incentivize women to want to stay. And I think for me, making sure the culture is healthy for like loads of different people, not even just women, just for different backgrounds, because I think that aggressiveness, what can happen sometimes in like, not everywhere, in some tech teams, can cause like people who are maybe a bit less who are maybe a bit less aggressive or a bit passive, to not want to be there and not enjoy it.
Yeah, and if people aren't staying, we don't have the experienced role models for them as well, to both attract other people and to show them what good looks like, show them where they can go and what career they can have. I wonder if a better way I can put it is, maybe in tech there's a lower average standard of soft skills than perhaps in some of our industries. Or maybe we attract people that think they don't need the soft skills and they can focus on writing the code and not have to talk to people. I think that's maybe why I get a lot of pushback in meetings and other things. So where do you stand on that? What's your view on the importance of soft skills as a software engineer?
So I think it's a very hard skill to learn for a lot of developers, but I also think you get to a point in your career where if you don't have them, you are stuck at that level, because you need to be able to communicate what it is that you want to achieve. And not only that, you need to be able to convince people it's the right thing to do, and also have the like humility and ability to accept that maybe it isn't the right thing as well. So if you do have this idea, you need to be open to different approaches as well, because it isn't about your idea being the best idea. It's about what's best for the business. And I think a lot of people think that like they have to make impact by being the one, being the ideas person, being the person who, gives other people work, but they don't. They A lot of the time it can be, okay, how do I help like the team achieve this thing? Or like, get to this goal. And you can't do any of that without having soft skills. You can't do any of that without being able to communicate what it is that you want, without understanding what other people want, which is a big part of soft skills as well, I think. And so, yeah, you just end up stalled, I think. Especially, I think you kind of end up stalled at that kind of mid-level, senior level, because I don't think you can be a senior without soft skills.
Yeah, absolutely. To get in there, you need to start having more influence. You'll spend less time coding, more time talking to people, more time influencing, more time in all sorts of collaborative activities. And you need those soft skills to be able to do that and work with other people and accept
And
that.
it's a real like powerful thing as well when you have that ability to think about what it is that you need and think what the business needs, and to articulate that in a way that other people can then understand it, and find fault with it and pick flaws at it, and you end up coming to a solution that is the best, not the best, but like better than you envisioned if you just did it by yourself.
Yeah, and you bring people along for the ride that way as well. They've been involved in it rather than you going, ta-da, here's my brilliant idea that you will do. There's been some involvement and some buy-in and some collaboration seeing that. You mentioned a couple of minutes ago about people being drawn to tech for, they can make lots of money. That's been, again, true. For as long as I can remember talking about tech, there were people on my university course that didn't know what to do, heard computer science can make loads of money, go and do that. And that was back when, they envisaged that after 10 years, they might be able to make 40,000 a year. Now with social media, we see lots of higher salaries. We see talk of 6-7 figure salaries for new graduates. I think that's kind of distorted the market because that's not realistic in the UK. At least it's never been my experience. What do you think of?
Yeah, I completely agree. So I guess one thing we need to determine is what constitutes as a good salary. So for a lot of people, a tech salary is a good salary. Like a typical developer salary in the UK is a good salary. You're looking around 50 to 70k for like an average mid level, or and a senior level around 70k to 80. I think, I don't know. Like it depends where you are in the UK, but that is vastly different to salaries that you're getting in Seattle and San Francisco, where you're getting like 200k base, and then you're getting around 400k in stock sometimes. Like, so it's a very different like level of money. Um, that there's a few times where people think that they can go into tech and then they can get to like 6-figure salaries in a few years, which just for the majority of people isn't realistic. So it is possible in the UK to get that, but a lot of the time it's either London or big tech is the kind of two ways that you would get that, or finance. Those are the companies that you're gonna do to get those bigger end salaries, and they typically a lot of times require really really like, especially the financial institutions require like really like a lot of maths backgrounds as well, because they want you to be doing like calculations with like the whatever what I don't know. I've never worked at a financial institution, but I know that they typically want you to have like a computer science degree or like a maths degree for what they're doing. So it's not a realistic portrayal of what most people are doing in tech. Most people are doing web development, especially in the UK, which is has a better barrier for entry, but the salaries aren't ridiculously high, like 100 like to 200k, for example.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realise that the UK market is really broadly two markets. There's London and not London. And within London, yeah, it's possible to get in the six figures at mid-senior level. But even then, it's in a financial institution or it's one of the few big tech companies that has an office there. Outside of that, for most people, it's not even close. And I saw a job advertised the other day in Cardiff for somebody with data science and some relatively reasonable machine learning skills that was being advertised as a contract at £150 a day. I mean, quite frankly, that was ludicrously low.
Oh yeah, that's the other way as well. Like contracting you can get a little bit higher as well.
Although you pay quite a lot of tax on that, and it's a very weird thing. We've now created this situation in the UK where contractors are effectively on 0-hour contracts, but paying an incredible amount of tax.
So is that the same for outside as well? Outside,
If you're outside
or...
your business, you're not really a contractor, and there are very few genuinely outside IR35 contracts. I mean, if we're really honest about it, IR35 came in to address the fact that banks predominantly were paying people as contractors so they could avoid paying national insurance. IR35 is there to address that, and I think that's fair to address that. It's just been really, really badly implemented and has completely destroyed contracting in the UK because it's left no scope for either way. So
it's interesting. I think from what I understand with like contract, like doing it as a business, if you're outside IR35, it basically has to be like very, very project specific. And in theory, you could like hire someone in your company and give it to them as well. So like you're not like the individual.
It has to be a genuine business to business relationship.
Yeah.
Which is fair, because if you're operating as a business and you're paying tax as a business, it should be a genuine business, not a disguised employment. The trouble is that the way it's been implemented now, the off-point are working, you are effectively an employee, but with 0 likes, 0 hours, and the tax burden of the employee and the business. So with an IR35 contractor, if they're not careful, can easily end up with a tax burden way above 60%. Which, it can sound like a great day rate, but if you're then paying 60% tax on it, it really isn't.
Yeah, the tax in the UK is a little bit messed up, to be honest. It's not a great the rules, I think, make it really, really complicated as well. I've had to actually get an accountant because I get stocks and it makes it all really confusing. So like I've had to pay for an accountant this year to do my like personal like return.
No, in that way, it's a good problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true, but it's just so confusing because like, you just say I have no idea what like this all adds to, and then you'd never know if you're going to end up with a massive tax bill because the company have calculated things wrong or you like not done something right, if that makes sense.
Especially if you've got stocks in a US company when you're in the UK, because then it gets even more confusing. Yeah, fun times. So, we talked a little bit about size and kind of unrealistic. You're now working in big tech, but you started off in, I'm going to guess, small companies I hadn't heard of. How have you found that contrast between the companies and progressing through the UK tech?
So most of the companies that I've worked in have either been small or mid-sized. So the last company before here was a small company, and then I've worked for a lot of mid-sized companies as well. It's very different in that I feel like I get a lot more time to learn here. So when I was in previous companies, I did get to learn. Like how, but it was more like on the job learning. So it's like, okay, you need to implement this thing in the next 2 weeks. Go ahead and do it. And so you're figuring out frantically how to implement a cash flow in 2 weeks and make sure that it is tested and make sure that it is not vulnerable to attacks in 2 weeks. And you're like, okay, well, you learn a lot because you have to learn a lot. But in big tech, it's more proactive learning. I guess you would say you get a bit more time to actually proactively learn stuff. So I'm not like every every day of the year tied to delivering a product or a project. So I have like a couple of weeks here and there where I get to actually focus on like upskilling in something. So that's the biggest thing, the biggest difference that I've learned. I think the other difference is, and this is probably the most bureaucratic difference that I've learned or seen, is just the way that you progress, you have to be a lot more political, I guess you would say, in the way that you grow and do your impact. So impact is measured by output of like and how your projects like deliver for customers. And so you have to try and be involved in projects that deliver good impact to then be able to progress. Whereas in like smaller companies, is less like, is you don't have to be strategic like that. You just get on with it and get stuff done.
Yeah, it's interesting, the contrast set. It's always something that seems to be quite focused on in big tech. And I don't really know why we don't focus on it in other companies, because we're hired to create an impact, to get something done. We should be, whether it's a company of 2 people or a company of 200,000 people, we should be looking at, are these people making an impact? If not, what are the blockers? How do we remove them? How do we enable them to make an impact? And if we can't make an impact with them, why do we have them on payroll? Why aren't we finding projects we can usefully use them for?
Yeah, and I guess the challenge you have though is when you have everyone who is looking to make an impact, you end up with a lot of initiatives that are started to make that impact, to tick that box, to rather than doing like, there is work that needs to be done, even if it's not going to be the most impactful thing. It still needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you end up with people like all wanting to go for the high impact stuff, and then all the other stuff that still needs to be done is like neglected when you only focus on that. And I'm not saying that that's the case in my team, but it's just an observation that I've made, like on like when you measure that, there's a lot of people who do focus on just focusing on the things that they know that's going to make an impact, and you're like, okay, well, everyone else just gets the strags. Is that the word, strags?
Yeah, nobody wants to focus on keeping the lights on, do they, when there's all the exciting new stuff? So again, look at the contrast and try not to sound like a job interview. I noticed early in your career you'd had a couple of short stints at a couple of companies. I was, again, not sounding like a job interview, just kind of curious what it was about, because there's always this debate about should you job hop, should you not. So see if there's an interesting story there.
Yeah, so for me, I worked at, so I'll just give you my full life story. So I worked at APD, which is now known as Zetron, for a couple of years, and I really liked it there. And I was a software engineer, and then I became a product owner there. And I really liked being a product owner, and I was quite good at it, and I got promoted quickly for it. So I was leading that function, but then the company, in the way that it was split into 2. So it got split into like new product development and old product development, and I got put on the old product development. And it was a bit of a wake up call for me. I was like, oh my God, if I keep doing this, I'm going to get really behind. I wanted to learn about cloud. I wanted to learn about new technologies. And so I made a decision that that I needed to learn more about how to work with cloud technologies. And so the next role that I had was a company that was building a new product in Azure. So I kind of, so I knew I wanted to get back into development, because I knew I wanted to learn about cloud. And then for the next year, I couldn't figure out whether or not I wanted to do software development, or whether or not I wanted to do product ownership and agile delivery. And it was this 2 loves that I had of, I really enjoy coding, but I also really enjoy the breaking things down and designing. And that year I've realized actually what I really enjoy doing is the system design, and it's the actual like breaking down of how are we going to do this problem that I enjoyed. And that's what I was doing a lot of the time when I was doing some of the product ownership. I was doing okay, well, this is because it was like more of like a technical product owner, I guess you would say, rather than a kind of, in companies I've noticed you have like technical product owners and you have more user focused product owners. And I was doing more of the technical product ownering. And so I realized that actually what I really enjoy doing is some more of the like system design and technical design. And so I know that really to be to do that, it's more about being a software engineer and just progressing as a software engineer. Because when you get more to senior and to tech lead, that you do a lot more of that. So that meant that I ended up going back into software engineering, which I started as a senior software engineer at Teppit. And I really liked it there. I wouldn't have moved. The only reason I moved is because Microsoft like reached out to me, and it was a company that I really wanted to work for. But yeah, it was just figuring out for me whether or not I wanted to do software engineering or something different. But yeah, I really really like software engineering. I'm really really glad that I moved back before it was like too late. Or I guess it's never too late, but it felt like, you know, it felt like it was getting like too late.
So in many ways, then it worked for you in that you try the different roles, get some experience, and figure out which direction you wanted to take.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, like, I feel like there's so many of those skills that I have been able to use in my software engineering career that have helped like the team, that have helped the backlog, that have helped things like that to be good. It because there's a lot of skills that you need in being a product owner that are required as a software engineer, especially when you are working in a team that's kind of chaotic. Like the way that a lot of our projects works is the way that a lot of our projects come in is quite ad hoc, and aren't fully scoped at the beginning, and so you constantly have to figure out what it is that you need throughout the project. And so that kind of product ownership of, okay, we need to break things down, we need to do design work, we need to write tickets, really helps with that kind of way of working.
Yeah, we talk a lot in tech about how we should have T-shaped developers and get those broad skill sets, but weirdly we don't encourage it. Sometimes we view that kind of trying different roles as, why did you do that? Are you not sure? It's like, well, actually that's growth, that's personal development, isn't it? That's learning about what you want, and it's having that broader skill set, that empathy with those different roles that actually enable you to move forward and be more impactful.
Yeah, and it's given me such a appreciation as well for like, so I've seen the amount of stuff that the product owners and the project managers protect the development team from. And I've also seen developers get very, very frustrated with the product owner, the project manager. But actually they saw like the amount of stuff that like they were dealing with to even get to like the point of like what they're asking for is a completely different experience. I remember like in my old company, like our product manager was dealing with so much stuff, like dealing with so many like stakeholders who were unhappy and wanted X, Y, and Z, and they didn't make the team worry about that. And so like you get an appreciation for actually like my problems are a lot smaller, and actually maybe I could be a little bit less hard on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember once promoting somebody up to his first management role, and a couple of months in, he said, "Wow, I didn't realize how much stuff you were keeping from us and protecting us from us when you were leading the team." So yeah, you're right. It gets you that empathy, doesn't it? And understanding of different roles and that bigger picture view, which is always helpful.
I think it helps as well. Like my partner is also a engineering manager, and I also see like, you know, he has to protect people from in his role as well. And it really does open your eyes of like how much they do for the team. It means gives me a lot of respect for my manager as well, because I just know that he has to do the same.
Cool. I wanted to jump about a bit now, and you've for about last year, maybe a bit longer, you've been focusing on building a personal brand. You've done a lot of LinkedIn. You've done a lot of YouTube. What's your goal with that? Where's that heading?
So I would love to grow my YouTube. I would love that. I think that is where I really want to focus my efforts. I really want to grow my YouTube so that I can um, monetize it in a way that I don't have to charge people. I don't want to charge people. I just want to like make passive income from AdSense and things like that. But I would love to do that because I love being able to like share knowledge with people, but also do it in a way that is going to be sustainable. Because long term putting this many hours into it is not sustainable if it doesn't have any like monetary gain. I would love to just be able to make stuff for free and do things for free, but that's just not how the world works, unfortunately. So I really want to monetize it in a way that I can give people like knowledge for free, but without having to charge them for it. So that's my aim. So I've been putting a lot of more work into doing more technical content recently, and I think the idea for me is going to be to try and focus more on like the Microsoft Entra and Azure side of stuff because I think that's where my skill set lies. I was hired by Microsoft because of my knowledge in Azure. So if so I should try and tie into that a little bit more, I think. So that's my aim going forward. I really, really would love to grow it so that I can monetize it in a way that I feel um doesn't conflict with my morals because I have very, very like I have specific morals about like taking money from people that I don't think I should be. Like, yeah, I don't know. I'm very conflicted about that.
Enough. So you posted on LinkedIn yesterday you were 1 hour off monetization. Stats the next day. Have you made it now?
I haven't checked, but to be fair, so YouTube don't update the analytics like straight away. They update it like once a day, I think. So it's probably not even updated yet. So but yeah, it's getting there. And actually that's not entirely true. So I have enough to apply to be a YouTube partner now, but then you still need to get to 4,000 before you can use AdSense. So 3,000 allows you to do like gifts and stuff like that. Apparently, I don't know what that means, but I can start the application for applying to be a partner, and then hopefully by next month I can then start monetizing through AdSense.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
My youngest son is currently racing me. He wants to monetize his YouTube channel. His is about guitars, and I've got one for coding chats, obviously, but also coding challenges.
Yeah, honestly, I think coding challenges is such a great thing. I love that. I've told so many of my mentees just to be like, try some of these things, see how you get on with them, and they love doing it as well. And yeah, I just think it's one of those things where it's great that you give a lot to the community, and I really love creators who do that. I think that's really important as a creator to do that.
Thank you. Well, as you say, I'm trying to work on the principle of giving away 99%, but I've got bills to pay. So if you say it's got to have some financial return.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fine, and it's at the end of the day, like even if you look at people like nurses and carers and anything like that, they go to work, but they should still be paid for what they're doing because they're doing a good job, even if they are doing something that is to help people. It's not about like it's making sure that they are like being rewarded for what their efforts are. And I try and think of it like obviously like what we're doing is nothing like in comparison, but I guess it's a bit like teaching, I guess. Well, that's probably better.
Yeah, and arguably we should actually be paying them better so that they can do that without worrying about, after I care for these people, can I go home and actually care for my own family?
Exactly. So it's really like I've had to like try and change my mindset of not like that it's okay to be greedy with your time or like to appreciate your time. to be like, okay, no, my time is valuable, and I don't really advertise it, but if people wanted to have a call with me, I was like, well, it costs, but I don't really advertise it because I don't really want I don't really need that time to be charged, but like it's just because if someone really really wants to have a call with me, I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but it just costs money. But yeah, I've always been a really weird about like charging for things like that, but I've had to start getting better at it because I know like it's a perfectly valid thing to do, and it's I need to believe more in myself of yes, you are worth that time.
There's an interesting flip side to that as well, in that they will value it more if they paid for it. When I started my first business in 2001, we were fairly young and naive, so we started off thinking, well, we're young guys, we're naive, we just need to charge low and get some experience. And we did that, and you get a certain type of customer then, and we also gave some advice away for free. When we gave advice away for free, people didn't value it, didn't take it. And then we see them 6 months later still making the same mistakes, still in the same position. When we then started saying, well, we've got bills to pay, we've got to start charging a bit more for this. So we started charging more at boutique level. We then got slightly more customers. Obviously, it's far more worthwhile doing because we've been well paid for it now. We also found people actually started listening to and taking the advice and getting the results. So it's the same advice, but now we've charged them a boutique level consultancy fee for it. But now they took it. Now they got the benefit of it, where before they didn't when it was free. So it's a strange thing that we value what we pay for, and people are more likely to take it and use the advice if they pay for it.
Yeah, I think that's the only downside to like just focusing on YouTubers, because you're right, it is people do have that conception that if someone's giving you something for free, it's not as valuable. So, and that's the only thing that's like, makes me think, maybe I should do a course, but I don't know. I think for me, it's just it's the time element of it. Like, I think to do a good course, you need to be able to dedicate that time to answering questions, to do it like, leading the course, like you do with your personal branding course. Whereas I just don't have that time at the moment. Whereas I think with YouTube, you can just put the video out there and then you'll probably get a couple of comments, but you don't have any obligations to like get people to a specific point. You can just answer their questions, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Cool. We're coming to the end of our time, taking up nearly an hour of your time. So thank you very much, Jade. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with listeners and watchers of the podcast?
Yes, of course. So thank you. I just wanted to thank John again for having me. I think what John does in his LinkedIn, on his podcast, with his coding challenges is really, really beneficial. So, I know you've probably seen all of those things, but do check them out. He's really, really great. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for having me. It's been really, really nice to speak with you. I know that we've been we've been in contact for a while, but we've just never really had the time where we've been able to connect. So it's been great to be on here, and I'm really, really glad that you invited me. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Jade. And what's your YouTube channel? Where should people find you?
Yes, it's Jade Codes. It's with a dash.
We'll put the links in the description.
Well, I'll put the links. Yeah. It's really awkward because some platforms only allow you to do an underscore, and some only allow you to do a dash. And so you have to compromise and be like, okay, this platform I'm going to have to do a dash, or this one I'm going to have to do an underscore. But you can see my face on it. So if you just search for Jade Codes, then you can see my face.
All right, cool. Thank you very much, Jade.